Yi is a transmigrator who has been born 99 times in different universes and with different capabilities. However, in all of his lives, he has been eliminated before he could reach his full potential. In one life, he encountered a system which multiplied the effectiveness of his cultivation techniques by 10,000 times, while another let him summon divine beasts. In fact, in one life, he has even tried to keep a low profile so that he could cultivate in peace. Unfortunately, he was always eliminated no matter how hard he tried to cultivate. For his 100th life, Yi has been born with an innate dew body, which means he has infinite potential for cultivation. However, he has decided that he would rather enjoy his life instead of cultivating. Currently, Yi lounges on his bed like the classic unemployed friend and gently tells himself that it's a perfect day for sleeping in. Suddenly, a check-in system interrupts, announcing that it has activated the strongest cultivator creation system. However, Yi remains indifferent and drifts back to sleep. The dejected system asks if he plans to show any enthusiasm, but Yi says that this is his 100th transmigration and insists he will ignore the system and live lazily. He laments that after 99 failed lives, he has realized that the system's rewards are simply luring him into doing random work. He tells this new system that this is his 100th transmigration and insists he'll ignore the system and live lazily. Undeterred, the system announces that Yi has got a newbie reward, which is a 10,000-fold cultivation speed boost. It urges him to cultivate, but Yi, who is completely unimpressed, continues sleeping like a fat pig. Frustrated, the system reboots and transforms into a location check-in system with a feminine voice. It informs him that he only needs to reach designated locations to check in. Even if he simply checks in the designated spot like a GTA NPC, he will receive rewards. Despite all this, Yi sleeps on, leaving the system baffled. Hours later, Yi finally wakes at dusk and stretches like he is some luxurious breed of dog. The system is relieved and encourages him to move toward the check-in point. But Yi heads to the kitchen instead while muttering that he's hungry and plans to cook fish. The system reboots once again, and a new version declares that it has checked in for Yi, and as a result of completing the first task, he has received the holy water body. However, the side effect is that the holy water is harmful to ghost and demon cultivators. Yi completely ignores this information and pours the holy water out to wash vegetables. As Yi prepares his meal, a shy young woman enters his house from the front door. Instead of being suspicious like a normal human, he warmly invites her to eat. He assumes that she is a lost new disciple and plans to take her to the front office after the meal. Outside Yi's house, patrol squad disciples approach and soon inform Yi that a ghost cultivator skilled in transformation has infiltrated the sect. Yi checks his portable magic detector and it shows no reaction. Thus he assures them the intruder isn't nearby and the disciples quickly go away from the spot. Once he goes inside, he notices a burning smell and panics as he realizes his fish is overcooking. Unbeknownst to him, the young woman is a ghost cultivator in disguise. She is extremely happy that Yi's home somehow blocks her demonic aura, allowing her to evade detection. She now plans to devour him like a day-old pizza. Just as she prepares to attack, her stomach begins to growl painfully. The holy water from the meal she had eaten in Yi's house has taken effect, and seconds later she vanishes like a bad smell in the wind. Yi, who is unaware of the danger, returns with a slightly burnt fish and is disappointed to find the woman gone. He assumes the stranger will be safe as the senior sisters will handle any issues. The system also reappears, excitedly announcing that he's completed a random quest and rewards him with the eternal undying scripture. This scripture contains the heavenly Tao as well that will grant Yi an indestructible body and an immortal lifespan. Yi, however, uses the scripture to support his wobbly dining table and then praises his own ingenuity. The system, which is slowly losing its faith in humanity, is left speechless.
Yi is still determined to live a carefree life and plans to go fishing after his meal. The check-in system, however, interrupts and announces that it's compensating for a previous loss due to an unknown error and is rebooting. On the other hand, after finishing his meal under a bright sun, Yi-fan is in a jolly good mood. He dons a hat, puts on his sunglasses, grabs his bucket and fishing rod, and heads out to fish. Other disciples spot him and begin to whisper among themselves like a bunch of married women. They lament that senior brother Yi wastes his extraordinary talent by fishing instead of cultivating. One disciple remarks that if they had his gifts, they wouldn't throw the talent away by being a useless bum. While this is happening, a woman's voice suddenly cuts through the noise, scolding Yi for losing focus and urging him to train. Yi is startled but immediately acknowledges her command. He is also internally excited as he realizes he's been scolded by senior sister Yan, the third disciple of true monarch Yun. Before they can continue, a loud explosion erupts nearby, prompting everyone around to flee in panic. Disciples shout to Yan that the Wantu sect is attacking, which makes her incredibly surprised, as attacks like these have never been seen before. Shortly afterwards, a figure approaches and reveals himself as the second elder of the Wantu sect. He calmly explains that his sect didn't intend to intrude on the Zai Yun sect's mountain gate, but he was forced to act after being denied permission to investigate. An enraged Yan points her sword at him and demands to know why the Wantu sect thinks it can search her sect's territory at will. The elder is undeterred and insists that the Zai Yun sect should hand over the nine-tailed spirit fox. Upon hearing this, the disciples behind Yan begin to mutter like students in math class, and someone even notes that the legendary nine-tailed spirit fox is a treasure that could bring prosperity to their sect. Jian, a Wantu sect disciple, accuses the Zai Yun sect of stealing the fox they've long pursued and demands an explanation. Yan, who is now getting tense, steps forward and states that such a serious matter requires her master's attention. But the sect leader will only come out after emerging from her meditation, and until then, the Wantu sect has no right to enter their territory. Enraged, the elder orders his disciples to attack, accusing the Zai Yun sect of hoarding the fox. Yan, refusing to yield, charges forward, mocking the Wantu sect's audacity despite their small numbers. However, as the two sides clash, a nearby patch of grass rustles. Hidden inside is a Wantu sect infiltrator who grins sinisterly. He is pleased that the elder's distraction has allowed him to sneak into the enemy sect. He boasts that, as his sect's expert in spirit beast detection, he will easily be able to locate the nine-tailed spirit fox. He moves swiftly through the forest, but soon pauses as he spots Yi fishing calmly by a stream. He wonders why someone is just lounging around like a jobber instead of cultivating. But the intruder also notes that Yi lacks any cultivation base and dismisses him as a hopeless mortal. Meanwhile, the check-in system interrupts Yi's yawn, announcing that it has detected a supreme-grade spirit beast named the nine-tailed spirit fox nearby. It urges Yi to get off his backside and capture it. He groans inside his mind as he is annoyed that the system is trying to disrupt his peaceful fishing. The system, sensing his reluctance, reassures him that there's no danger and even offers a spirit beast contract orb that will instantly bind the fox as his loyal pet. Suddenly, Yi sits up with excitement in his eyes, and this prompts the system to cheer that he's finally taking action. However, Yi's joy comes from catching a fish and not actually doing any meaningful thing, and he proudly holds up his prize. Frustrated, the system angrily tosses the contract orb away, scolding that a mere fish is more important to Yi than a supreme-grade spirit pet. The orb sails through the air and strikes the sleeping nine-tailed spirit fox on the head. The fox gets up, snarls that someone is trying to rob its freedom and force it into endless battles. It sees the orb and vows not to be enslaved by anyone. Unfortunately for the spirit, it soon gets exhausted by the orb's effects and collapses. Seconds later, a notification chimes, congratulating Yifan for obtaining the supreme-grade spirit pet, nine-tailed spirit fox. The hidden Wantu sect infiltrator is shocked as he senses the fox being bound by a contract and suspects Yi is involved in this. He unleashes the Wantu one-finger strike toward Yi, intending to obliterate him and deal with the fox later. The check-in system frantically warns Yi, but, knowing his laziness, it decides to intervene. It deflects the attack and launches a counterattack that is amplified 100-fold. A massive explosion soon rocks the area, sending smoke and debris everywhere. Elsewhere, the elder of the Wantu sect is alarmed by the blast and wonders if something is happening at the Great Stone. He knows something is truly wrong, and thus orders his forces to retreat. Meanwhile, Yan is severely injured in the fight, causing her to reel and cough up blood. Her fellow disciples rush to her side, urging her to hold on. The Wantu sect elder pretends to be concerned and questions if her injuries are genuine, but also notes that his strike shouldn't have caused such damage. Right then, another woman descends from the sky and furiously accuses the Wantu sect of bullying the Zai Yun sect. The enemy disciples kneel, offering gifts as an apology and pleading with the woman that they should be allowed to leave. As they flee, Jian curses in silence as he is frustrated that he failed to find the fox and was even extorted. The woman is puzzled by their actions but prioritizes saving Yan. Nearby, Yi's jade pendant suddenly rings, and he wonders if his master is sending another message. He is correct, as a message urges him to come quickly due to some unknown trouble. Dropping his fishing rod, he races back, but stumbles upon the unconscious Wantu sect infiltrator. He seethes in anger as he suspects that this whole thing is yet another system trap designed to entangle him in events and make him its slave. Dismissing the ploy as outdated, he hurries on towards his master. When he actually reaches his destination, he calls out to his master, who is sobbing, and informs him that senior sister Yan is not going to make it, and that she called him to see her one last time. A shocked Yan can say nothing in response as his jaw drops to the ground. Stunned, Yi asks his sect leader, Yun, how senior sister Yan could have deteriorated so quickly when she seemed completely fine that morning. Yun explains that the pathetic losers from the Wantu sect are to blame for this. She then reveals that the Wantu sect gets its powers from demonic beasts. Unfortunately, Yun also has a small portion of demonic energy in her, and around 6 months ago, it was destabilized while she was cultivating a technique. She adds that during the recent attack, Yan forcefully activated her technique, only to be struck where the demonic energy had collected. This caused it to spiral out of control and backfire, leaving Yan with little time left. Overwhelmed with grief, Yi mourns for his senior sister, recalling how, when he was younger, Yan teased him as the master's new disciple. She had always insisted that he call her senior sister, and she had even promised to protect him despite his refusal to cultivate. Consumed by rage, he curses the check-in system as he blames it for turning him into an errand boy and causing Yan's condition. The system, who is bewildered, protests internally that it's innocent and is being unfairly blamed. Just then, a disciple enters, announcing that the spiritual water requested by the sect master is ready. Desperate to redeem itself, the system urges Yi to take a vial it produces, but Yi, who is still furious, accuses it of trying to trick him again and orders it to be quiet. Startled, the system drops the vial, which falls into the basin of spiritual water brought by the disciple, and the two liquids dissolve together without anyone noticing it. Following this, Yun, who is hoping the spiritual water will ease Yan's suffering, begins to tend to her disciple. But Yi offers to tend to his senior sister, urging his master to rest after her long vigil. As he dips a cloth into the basin, Yun senses something unusual and notes that the spiritual water feels far more potent than usual. She wonders if she's imagining things or if he somehow altered its properties. However, she quickly dismisses the idea since he is so useless that he doesn't even cultivate. To her astonishment, Yan's complexion turns rosy, her demonic energy stabilizes, and her wounds heal completely. Not only that, but Yan's cultivation breaks through to the 10th level of Kai condensation. Yi, who has no idea what has happened, wonders why his master seems so unusual given Yan's grave condition. As night falls, Yun gathers the sect's elders. The Grand Elder inquires about Yan's condition, and Yun reports that she is safe and sound. This prompts another elder to express disbelief that such severe injuries could be healed in such a short time. Yun dismisses the entire talk and shifts the discussion to the Wantu sect's unprecedented attack on their mountain gate. She notes that they apologized rather quickly and then immediately retreated. Another elder reports discovering a Wantu sect disciple's body near Tranquil Clarity Lake, and it looks like he was eliminated by their own sect's technique. Yun, deep in thought, finds this odd, recalling that he was recently active near the lake. She speculates that his innate Tao body, unseen for 10,000 years, might grant him unknown abilities, though she has never seen him even lift a cup to drink water. When the Grand Elder asks if she has any leads, Yun replies that she has clues but needs further confirmation. It is obvious that she has decided to investigate Yi the next day since he's likely asleep at this moment. Yun then asks about the nine-tailed spirit fox, which was mentioned by the Wantu sect during the conflict. An elder responds that no disciples have reported sightings, assuring her that any disciple finding such a valuable beast would treat it well. Meanwhile, in Yi's room, the nine-tailed spirit fox grows frustrated as he sleeps soundly. The check-in system warns that the fox's life is in danger if it is not fed immediately, while the spirit grumbles that Yi forcibly contracted it, but neglects to care for it. Ignoring the system, the fox decides to fend for itself and searches for leftovers in the kitchen. Finding an impeccably clean kitchen is surprising, as it has seen Yi live like a dirty pig. However, the fox declares it won't eat vegetables, but soon throws its ego out of the window when its stomach growls in hunger. It then starts gulping down all the food available in the kitchen with great pleasure. Suddenly, a small noise echoes in the living room as two men quietly enter Yi's home. One of these men is the Wantu sect leader, while the other is his assistant. The latter is a tall, thin man, and he chuckles that his spirit fox tracker is glowing brighter, which indicates that the nine-tailed spirit fox is nearby. The pod assistant is delighted and says that even the immortal Yun hasn't detected the fox and declares that the gods are favoring them. The sect leader snaps that there's no divine favor and reminds the assistant that he provided resources to two elders who failed to capture the fox. Those useless elders also lost the Great Stone, which was supposed to be the compensation to the Zai Yun sect. This whole debacle forced him to handle the matter personally, and now they are here, acting like thieves. The Grand Elder gets nervous and praises the sect leader's vision, while revealing that he hired 13 notorious bandit kings from the Distrokletter 183 NG Hauling region to create diversions for a smooth operation. He ensures that they will escape even if Zai Yun finds out that they are here. However, the sect leader soon spots Yi sleeping like a baby nearby. The sect leader questions why he's still there, as he had assumed the bandit kings must have lured him away. The Grand Elder explains that Yi is just a mortal who likely didn't hear anything. Nonetheless, the sect leader casts the Wantu Heaven opening palm toward Yi, declaring that even a mortal must be eliminated to ensure the operation's success. The old geezer is unwilling to tolerate any risk of failure. Meanwhile, the Wantu sect's Grand Elder marvels at the sect leader's ruthlessness, noting that he spares no effort even against a mere mortal. The check-in system, visibly annoyed, casually flicks the sect leader as if he were some annoying fly sitting on its favorite ice cream. The blow sends the sect leader crashing into the Grand Elder, and this creates a loud commotion. The noise jolts Yi awake, who wonders if rats are causing a ruckus in the kitchen. The system is delighted as its host is finally awake, and it smugly thinks that it's learning Yi's personality. It thinks that if it had directly woken up Yi, it would have been ignored or even crashed its own system. So, handling threats and waiting for him to wake naturally allows it to claim credit. On the other hand, Yi looks around the area and is shocked to see two men passed out near his bed and wonders if he is at a diddy party. The system seizes the moment and begins boasting that it dealt with the two intruders while he slept. But Yi interrupts, wondering how these men wandered into his home at night and fell asleep. He is so dumb that he assumes they are exhausted from cultivating and came into his home to rest. He pulls out a bottle of pills that he got as a gift from two elders. Yi is relieved that he can use them to revive the men, and that way, he will not be blamed for allowing the men to pass away. The system warns that they tried to eliminate him, but Yi scoffs, dismissing the idea as fantasy. He argues that the Zai Yun sect strictly forbids violence among disciples, with punishments worse than death for mere insults. He adds that as a non-cultivator with no treasures, nobody has any motive to end his life. He adds that after 99 lifetimes, life and death no longer faze him. Moments later, the Wantu sect leader stirs and wonders if he's still alive. He and the Grand Elder both awaken only to find Yi staring down at them like a cat staring at a tuna fish. He inquires if they're awake, but his creepy smile prompts them to scramble out the door in terror. Yi once again misunderstands this and chuckles, thinking that they are in high spirits. He then recalls hearing that the pills he gave them have side effects, but shrugs it off as a mere legend. Once the strangers have run away from his home, Yi returns to sleep. Meanwhile, the nine-tailed spirit fox, having eaten a lot, grumbles internally about the noisy humans and wonders what they're doing. The Wantu sect leader and Grand Elder sprint for their lives and only stop after covering 500 miles. The Grand Elder gasps for breath and says they should be safe now. The sect leader, still visibly shaken, explains how terrifying the encounter was. He marvels at how Yi Fan effortlessly neutralized his full-powered attack and even saved them from certain death. He recalls the smile on Yi's face, and the Grand Elder interprets it not as a sign of kindness, but as the confidence of someone who could control them completely if he wanted to. The Grand Elder then points out that just because they couldn't sense Yi's cultivation doesn't mean he's immortal. Instead, it shows that their own cultivation level is too low to detect his power, which might even surpass Zai Yun's sect leader. When he brings up the nine-tailed spirit fox, the sect leader lets out a sigh and says their survival matters more right now. He adds that it was only thanks to Yi's mercy that they made it out alive. He then decides to prepare a grand gift and plans to apologize to Yi in person once they return, even if it costs them everything. The Grand Elder agrees without hesitation. All of a sudden, the Grand Elder starts dancing in a strange and erratic way, which leaves the sect leader confused as he asks what's going on. The Grand Elder, just as baffled, says he feels an uncontrollable urge to dance, and the sect leader admits that he feels the same way. Far away, a wild boar watches them with an annoyed snort, frustrated that the noisy humans are disturbing its sleep. As it walks closer, it suddenly jumps back in fear when the sect leader, now grinning in a creepy way, invites it to join their dance. The Grand Elder even offers to turn around and act as the judge. The boar lets out a horrified squeal and accuses them of being disgusting creeps, which draws the attention of nearby cultivators who hurry over to see what's happening. When the cultivators arrive, they're horrified by what they find. The Wantu sect leader is holding onto the boar and yelling for it to dance, while the Grand Elder is crying and clinging to a monkey in a tree, calling it his father. The shocked onlookers scream that something is terribly wrong and run off to report the madness to their sect leader. By the next morning, 2 more cultivators are searching the forest. They point out that the Wantu sect leader and Grand Elder still haven't returned and left no trace behind. Suddenly, they hear a strange noise and approach with caution. When they reach the source, they're stunned to see both the sect leader and Grand Elder lying motionless on the ground, clearly defeated. Nearby, the same wild boar and monkey seem to be celebrating. Alarmed, the 2 cultivators shout that something terrible has happened. Back at the Zai Yun sect, Leader Yun and a member of the Wantu sect named Zong react with shock. Yun exclaims that the Wantu sect leader and Grand Elder are dead right outside their territory. Zong, furious, accuses the Zai Yun sect of pulling some kind of trick. But Yun, clearly confused, says she has no idea what the Wantu sect was trying to do. As the sun rises, Yi wakes up like he is the main heroine of a romantic movie, enjoying the last moments of peaceful sleep. He starts thinking about making himself a tasty breakfast. But when he steps into the kitchen, he suddenly panics because all his cooking ingredients are gone. He shouts in disbelief that an entire basket of vegetables has disappeared. Then he notices the 9-tailed spirit fox curled up and sleeping in the kitchen, and he immediately suspects it ate everything. Annoyed, he scoops the fox into his arms and explains that he went through a lot of trouble to carry those vegetables up the mountain. Right then, the check-in system speaks up and praises him for recognizing his top-tier spiritual pet, the 9-tailed spirit fox. It urges him to raise the fox well so he can receive great benefits. The fox quietly observes Yi and realizes that even though he seems poor, he didn't hit him for eating the food. This makes the fox reconsider its views on humans and wonder if it should follow him. The system, filled with excitement, celebrates the mutual understanding between them and encourages Yi to nurture the fox for a bright future. But Yi then mutters aloud about whether he should steam or braise the fox, which shocks both the fox and the system. He wonders if frying is a good option, and the system frantically begs him to stop thinking that way and respect this rare creature. The fox feels hopeless and thinks its life is over. He suddenly says he can't eat it just like that, which makes the system and the fox think he was only joking. The system praises him for changing his mind, and the fox grumbles that he's too playful. But Yi calmly adds that fox meat has a strong smell, and thus he needs herbs to hide it. The fox instantly panics again when it realizes Yi is still serious about cooking it. Yi grabs a knife and mumbles that he should butcher the fox now before it tries to escape. At that moment, Leader Yun walks in and asks what her disciple is doing. Yi casually replies that he's about to cut the fox and invites her to join him for a meal. Yun gasps when she realizes it's a 9-tailed spirit fox. Yi, who has the IQ of a rock, confirms it with a shrug and tells her to move aside so her robes don't get stained. Yun, still stunned, steps back in disbelief and admiration, thinking only someone with the innate Tao body would dare cook such a rare beast. Sensing something is off, Yun quickly grabs the fox away from Yi and asks if he's joking. Yi, looking confused, says it's just his breakfast, but Yun refuses to back down. He finally offers to let her keep it if she likes it that much. Annoyed, Yun wonders if her disciple picked up some sort of illness from the Wantu sect. She gives up on scolding him and decides to take care of the fox herself. The fox, finally safe, silently thanks its luck, while Yi, clueless, wonders why his master is making a big deal out of a fox. He then asks if she came for something specific, and Yun suddenly remembers her reason for visiting. She takes his hand and tells him to come to her room and take off his clothes. He blushes and stammers, asking if she's so hungry that she's acting out. Yun, also blushing, explains that as someone over 1,000 years old, she has no romantic interest in him. She just wants to examine his body. Yi jokes that as an old maid, she might be up to something, pointing out that with his 99 lifetimes, he's actually older than her. As she inspects him, Yun is shocked to find he has no cultivation base. She can't understand how he lifted a boulder and saved Yan without any cultivation. She suspects he's hiding his strength and asks him to reveal his real level in private, promising to keep it secret. Yi, flustered by her gaze and tone, insists that he's just as vulnerable as a newly born baby. Yun, misreading his modesty, thinks he must have reached the nascent soul stage in only 2 months. She compares this to her own 5th-level nascent soul cultivation and marvels at the potential of the innate Tao body. She's convinced that the Yun sect is about to rise again. Yi, completely confused, starts worrying about his master's mental state. But Yun just smiles and tells him she understands, encouraging him to keep enjoying himself and saying she has great expectations for him. Yi, unsure what she's talking about, decides to go get his fishing rod from Bright Lake. As Yun flies off, she feels incredibly proud, thinking her humble disciple must be hiding his nascent soul stage and that he'll surpass her in just half a month. She's even ready to hand over the sect leader position. Meanwhile, the 9-tailed spirit fox snuggles in her arms and breathes a sigh of relief, grateful to escape Yi's cooking plans, even though the contract with him still stands. Yun places the fox in a small house and decides to keep its presence a secret for now. The Grand Elder soon arrives and asks how Yi is doing on Jade Immortal Peak. He complains that Yi has spent 2 months eating and playing without cultivating, saying that not even someone with the innate Tao body should waste sect resources. Yun proudly tells him that her disciple has already reached the nascent soul stage. The Grand Elder bursts into laughter and accuses her of making things up to protect her student. Yun fumes inside and considers revealing the 9-tailed spirit fox just to scare him, but she holds back to protect Yi's secret. At that moment, a messenger rushes in and reports that something has happened to the 2 elders again. Yun and the Grand Elder cry out at the same time, shocked by the news. As Yi strolls nearby, he hears a noisy commotion and mutters that it sounds all too familiar because there is always some drama going on in this place. Curious about what's drawing the crowd, he wonders what's going on. One onlooker remarks that they're eager to see how long the 2 elders will last this time. In the center of the chaos, an old man clings to a woman and cries, begging his wife not to leave him and saying he was wrong. The woman, clearly angry, yells that she's not his wife and demands others bear witness to his inappropriate behavior. Watching the scene unfold, Yi realizes it's the 2 drama-loving elders again. He strains to hear someone explain that these 2 were once the sect's top alchemists, but started making bizarre pills and testing them on themselves. Shocked, Yi wonders if their pills actually have side effects. He remembers the Wantu sect leader and Grand Elder from the previous day and hopes the pills they took weren't dangerous. Suddenly, the old man rushes to Yi, grabs him in a tight hug, and cries that his son has come to see him. He swears to protect him and take him back to her mother. Some disciples whisper that they can now rest easy because someone as ambitionless as Yi is now holding the over-enthusiastic elders back. On the other hand, Yun hurries over in a panic, calling out to check if her precious disciple is okay. The Grand Elder scoffs, questioning her concern and sarcastically says that if he is really at the nascent soul stage, he should have no trouble here. Internally, she expects to expose Yun's lie, but the latter surprises her by calmly admitting she was too rash earlier. The check-in system suddenly alerts Yi, warning that the old man is dangerous and urging him to run. Yi brushes it off, saying the man is just heartbroken and inwardly complains that he doesn't like other men getting too close to him. The system freaks out and scolds him for not protecting himself, referencing countless tragic examples. Then, out of nowhere, a powerful energy blast erupts from Yi and sends the two elders flying, landing them at Yun and the Grand Elder's feet. Yun praises Yi inwardly for pretending he has no cultivation, while the Grand Elder is also stunned and starts to believe he's truly hiding his strength. The dazed elders wonder how they ended up on the ground, while the system panics, admitting it got overexcited and accidentally triggered a power boost. The disciples who were mocking Yi are now speechless, amazed that he just sent two 10th level Kai refinement elders flying. They begin to question how a supposed mortal could do such a thing. Yun floats happily toward Yi and asks if he's heading off to fish. Though annoyed she stole his breakfast, Yi nods politely and says the weather's great for fishing. Yun, smiling, encourages him to fish as long as he likes, secretly thinking he's using fishing to hide his cultivation training. Yi, touched by her understanding, beams internally, thinking that the hot senpai is into him. The surrounding disciples whisper among themselves in awe, regretting ever mocking Yi and wishing they had gotten close to him earlier. Meanwhile, the system won't stop urging Yi to visit the martial arts arena, West Iron Pill Peak, or the Scripture Pavilion to get top-tier rewards. The disciples, eager to ride his coattails, spread rumors that Yi is heading to Bright Lake to train, give advice, pass on a powerful technique, or face a heavenly tribulation. By the time the rumor reaches the Grand Elder, it has grown into a tale of Yi summoning a celestial phenomenon at Bright Lake. Shocked, she asks if it's true, and Yun, bursting with pride, confirms her disciple's greatness, even if she doesn't fully believe the rumor herself. Deciding to investigate, she heads to Bright Lake. But the Grand Elder isn't fooled and assumes she just wants to watch Yi in action. Disciples who used to mock Yi now hide in the bushes, watching his calm and graceful fishing posture. They believe they can sense his cultivation because they re too weak. Yun, also hiding in a bush, whispers to the Grand Elder, asking if he has caused a celestial phenomenon, but the Grand Elder tells her to stay calm. Feeling uneasy, Yi suddenly wonders why it's cold in the middle of summer and senses creepy eyes on him. Deciding it's too cold to stay out, he says he's heading back before he catches a cold, leaving the system in despair over yet another missed opportunity. Right then, Yun comes out of hiding and scolds the disciples, telling them to go back to cultivating, and immediately, they scramble away in panic. The Grand Elder sarcastically comments on Yun's boldness. Yi, on the other hand, carries a bucket of fish and cheerfully says it'll make a great soup for dinner. The system, which has rebooted once again, refuses to give up and announces a new check-in point at his residence with a supreme reward. As he steps into a glowing circle, a grand fanfare erupts, congratulating him for completing the check-in. The system cries with joy and rewards him with a super experience potion that will raise him to the first level of nascent soul and open the path to the heavenly Tao. But before it can explain more, Yi cuts it off, realizing he forgot to water his flowers. He grabs the heavenly vial and pours it on a nearby plant without a care in the world, simply because it's convenient. The system screams in agony, devastated by yet another misuse of a priceless reward. As night falls, the watered flower stirs and starts to gain life. One petal floats up and declares that it has become a demon cultivator, thanks to the essence Yi unknowingly gave it. The flower soars into the sky, swearing eternal gratitude to Yi as it ascends to a celestial realm where divine maidens play music and dance. Back at the sect, disciples spot the glow from Yi's residence and gasp, pointing out that this is a celestial phenomenon. They fall to their knees, believing Yi Fan deliberately waited until night so they could witness his power. They claim they now understand the true meaning of cultivation. The Grand Elder scoffs at their dramatic reaction. But Yun, who is stunned, realizes the wild rumors were actually true. Overcome with joy, she declares that the rise of the Zai Yun sect has officially begun. However, the Grand Elder sighs and reminds her to act with dignity and not like a simp. Ming, a cheerful disciple of the Zai Yun sect, carrying 2 large baskets of vegetables, beams with excitement as he heads off to deliver them to senior brother Yi. Along the way, a group of disciples blocks his path and demands that he hand over the vegetables or face the consequences. Though apprehensive, Ming refuses, reminding them that the sect forbids fighting among disciples. They retort that as long as they don't use Kai, it won't count as actual fighting. Then, without warning, the rowdy dudes lunge for the baskets. But Ming resists, pulling them back and firmly declaring that no one will touch his vegetables. To their shock, he effortlessly pummels them as if they are nothing but kindergarten children in front of his unexpected strength. As they stumble away in pain, they cry out that he must be a demon beast in disguise. Unbothered, Ming continues on, whistling happily as he announces the delivery of vegetables at Yi's door. Meanwhile, atop a cliff, Yun confronts a giant eagle from Huo Mountain, questioning why it has crossed into their territory since their sects usually avoid each other. The eagle scoffs at her broken-down sect and claims it's here for the nine-tailed spirit fox. Yun flatly denies knowing anything about it. In response, the eagle lets out a roar and declares it will force her to cooperate through battle. But with a simple sidestep, Yun lands a flaming palm strike that leaves the eagle gasping for breath. She calmly asks if it wants to continue. Realizing she's far stronger than expected, and that the rumors about the fox might be true, the eagle vows to report to its great king and promises the Yun sect's destruction. As it flees, Yun and her allies give chase, shouting that it won't escape. She knocks it unconscious with a single blow and frowns in concern, deciding it's time to confront the real source of trouble. Back at Yi's residence, he sets out for dinner and invites junior brother Ming, whom he mistakenly calls junior brother Lai, to wash up and join him. Ming lights up with excitement and compliments the mouth-watering aroma. As he serves the dishes, he reflects on the 99 lifetimes he spent chasing cultivation. He now vows to live as peacefully as a salted fish in a ready-to-eat can and simply enjoy life. Just then, a burst of demonic Kai scatters the meal, and a massive eagle claw swoops down to snatch both Yi and Ming. Yun, witnessing it in shock, yells at the eagle not to lay a feather on her precious disciples. The eagle refuses her offer to let it go peacefully, threatening to eliminate them if anyone follows. Ming trembles and stammers to Yi, but seeing his senior's calm expression, his fear fades into admiration. He marvels that senior brother Yi remains so composed and mentally crowns him his idol. Meanwhile, Yi has no other concern other than the fact that his precious dinner is now ruined thanks to this stupid bird. The check-in system suddenly activates, announcing that the great heavenly dragon is ready. A violent surge of energy bursts from Yi, blasting the eagle aside with a cry of pain and knocking it out. A stunned Yun gazes at her precious disciple and asks if he'd like to be sect leader just for fun, but Yi declines without hesitation. Undeterred, she follows him indoors, promising to get him new furniture. He reluctantly agrees, and this is enough to make her smile with delight. She mentions an exchange conference happening in half a month, but before she can explain further, Yi hoists the unconscious eagle and asks if she wants to join him for dinner with demon beast meat. She eagerly accepts and promises to return that evening. As he kneels to pluck the eagle's feathers, the system floats nearby, suggesting he check out other sects' locations for divine weapons to make future fights easier. It begins to announce a new reward, then stops itself, assuming Yi wouldn't care anyway. Just then, Ming enters with a basin of water and greets Yi. The latter then gently asks what's on Ming Bai's mind. Ming hesitates, then shares that Yun arranged for him to meet a female disciple. Things went well until she asked about his family's background, whether they had property, spirit beasts, or carriages. When he admitted his family were farmers with no city property or beasts, she scoffed and said she expected as much before leaving. This is the first time he has met a real-life gold digger, and this experience has left him disheartened. Yi claps Ming on the shoulder with a reassuring smile and invites him to stay for dinner, promising that Yun won't mind. Touched, Ming praises Yi's warmth and humility, saying even the most beautiful female disciples can't sway him. As he reflects quietly, Ming wonders if he somehow knows something deeper about him. That afternoon, sect leader Yun and elder Yan visit Yi's residence, where Yan cheerfully greets her junior brother, noting it's been a while since they last met. Yi then politely invites her to join him for a meal. Observing their warm interaction, Yun smiles and thinks it is wonderful how these young people are getting along with each other. Yi presents her with a package, which she accepts with joy. She then praises his extraordinary talent, diligence in cultivation, and filial nature, feeling blessed to have such a disciple. On the other hand, Ming, whose stomach is so full that he looks like he is 3 months into having a baby, announces he'll head back down the mountain if there's nothing else. He bids him a cheerful farewell, urging him to be careful. Yan, bowing her head, expresses gratitude for Yi's role in her survival, vowing to assist him wherever she can. Yi modestly dismisses her thanks, insisting that as fellow disciples, formality isn't necessary. Despite his words, Yan feels a pang of sadness, wondering how she can repay him, believing he's already at the nascent soul realm, while she's only at the 10th level of Kai condensation. While taking out the trash, Ming discovers a book among the refuse, gasping in surprise and wondering what it is. Recalling Yi's advice to be careful with the trash, he smiles hopefully, assuming it's safe to inspect. His eyes widen upon seeing the title, clutching the book to his chest in joy as he recognizes the eternal undying scripture, a powerful cultivation technique. The young disciple gives Yi more credit than he deserves and thinks that Yi didn't carelessly discard it, but used the trash as an excuse to gift him this supreme divine scripture, vowing to make his parents proud. Later that night, in his room, Ming huddles under his covers, opening the book with determination, resolving to hide it in a safe place to avoid discovery. After considering and dismissing spots like under the bed, the cellar, the wardrobe, and the drawers, he finds an absolutely safe location, proclaiming no one will find it there. He begins cultivating, circulating true Kai for one cycle, noting faint energy swirling within him and estimating half a month to progress further. Meanwhile, another disciple identifies a gigantic airship from the Tian King sect that is currently dominating the skyline. Nearby, a man marvels at the aircraft's size, noting that Tian King Dao Ren's 7th level nascent soul realm surpasses all other sect leaders, including Yun. A disciple expresses apprehension, having heard that the Zai Yun sect captured a 9-tailed spirit fox, wondering if the Tian King sect might attack if they can acquire one. On the other hand, the Grand Elder approaches Yun, suggesting she ask Yi again about participating in the upcoming competition. Yun sighs, explaining that her prized disciple refuses, leaving her with no options, though she believes Yan can manage a draw. Gazing at the airship, Yun muses that as long as Yi progresses, the Zai Yun sect could become the strongest of the 9 great sects, potentially even dominating the Dong Huang region. In his room, Ming diligently cultivates while mentally thinking not so nice things about his sensei. He exclaims that he's halfway to opening his meridians, and as he tucks the book into his robes with a triumphant grin, he estimates that he needs 2 more months to fully open them. A senior disciple approaches, informing Ming that his friend, Wen, was injured 2 days ago during training, so he must take his place in tomorrow's inter-sect competition. Alarmed, Ming points out that Wen is at the 5th level of Kai condensation while he's only at the 4th, fearing he'll be slaughtered. The senior, nonchalant, assures him he'll survive and to do his best, leaving Ming lamenting his brief half-month of cultivation and lack of fundamentals. Disciples buzz with gossip, noting that while the Golden Core matches were balanced, the Zai Yun group, except for Yan, has been crushed. The Grand Elder announces the next match and pits Hai of the Tian King sect against Ming of the Zai Yun sect. Whispers intensify, warning that Hai's opponents end up bedridden for half a month, and that his 5th level Kai condensation will defeat Ming instantly. Gripped by terror, Ming plans to collapse as soon as the match starts to avoid injury, and thinks that he has no problem losing a bit of dignity. Hai, observing his fear, sneers that he'll be gentle and ensures that Ming will only require a fortnight to recover. Tian King sect disciples roar encouragement to crush Ming, while Yun watches helplessly. Ming, touching his chin, plans to make his collapse convincing to avoid suspicion. He leaps forward, pretending to attack while he shouts at his opponent to get it over with. To Hai's astonishment, his punch connects, but Ming doesn't even flinch. Confused, he wonders why his punch, which is strong enough to drop any 4th level Kai condensation cultivator, had no effect. Ming, who is equally perplexed, notes that the punch felt weak and slow as if it lacked any real force. Hai then throws another punch, but Ming Bai remains unfazed yet again. Panicked, Hai demands an explanation, while Ming whispers that he appreciates the gentle approach, but finds the staged fight too obvious. Feeling mocked, Hai challenges Ming to trade blows instead of just taking hits. The latter naively agrees and thinks he'll provoke Hai with an attack so that he himself can pretend to collapse. Gathering his strength, Ming cheerfully complies with his opponent's request, but he ends up sending Hai flying several feet. From the sidelines, Yun watches with a smug smile, concluding that Yi didn't truly skip the competition but arranged for Ming to act on his behalf to save her face, confirming her belief in his hidden prowess. As Hai is carried away unconscious, the crowd erupts in chatter as they start questioning how Ming managed to knock him out with a single blow. Some accuse him of cheating because they can't believe anyone would fall so easily. Then an older man steps forward and challenges their doubts by asking if they honestly think the 7 great sects would show favoritism toward the Zai Yun sect. The crowd hesitates and admits it's not about favoritism, but about how unbelievable the result is. Ming meanwhile realizes the truth and concludes that his strength comes from the eternal undying scripture. This energizes him and makes him more eager to keep fighting. Meanwhile, the hawk that Yun injured earlier flies around with the grace of a drunken chicken and reports to the Eagle King. The hawk delivers its findings, and the Eagle King flares with rage because it believes the Zai Yun sect is willing to risk mutual destruction just to finish off one of its minions. This only confirms that the 9-tailed spirit fox is indeed hiding with them. The Eagle King spreads its enormous wings and gives the order for its followers to remind the cultivators who's really in charge of this region. It starts musing that if it can seize the fox's demon core, it might finally earn the title of Dong Huang's first demon king. Back at the tournament, Ming keeps the momentum going by knocking out another opponent in a single hit. The older man announces that this makes 7 straight wins for Ming and asks if there are any challengers left. The disciples all refuse at once since none of them wants to end up bruised and bedridden for a month. Some even dare outsiders to try instead. Ming, who is still itching for more fights like a stupid teenager, holds back because he doesn't want to bring embarrassment to his sect. Among the judges, an old man named Tian praises Yun for hiding such a skilled disciple as Ming within her ranks. Yun responds modestly and says he's just a Kai condensation disciple. However, Tian's tone turns sharper as he casually mentions a rumor about the 9-tailed spirit fox taking refuge with her sect. Wan lets out a dark chuckle because he immediately picks up on the bait being dangled. Yun brushes off the rumor and says her sect isn't that lucky, though internally she's cursing Wan for stirring up nonsense. Tian sets his cup down and says they should skip the denials and cut to the chase. His aura turns chilling as he demands the fox be handed over or else. Yun's face goes pale, but she gathers her Kai and prepares to fight, which causes her disciples to panic. Tian arrogantly tells her she has 3 seconds to decide and threatens to wipe her sect off the map. As Tian starts counting, Dan Yun's mind spins because she doesn't know whether to protect the fox for Yi's sake or surrender it to save her people. When Tian reaches 1, he lunges at her and roars that she must die. Just then, a strange voice breaks in and questions why the cultivators are even fighting. Tian whirls around in surprise and recoils when he sees the Eagle King, a massive bird demon who's just a hair away from the nascent soul realm. Tian stammers like he has lost all his brain cells and accuses the demons of wanting the fox's blood to extend the Eagle King's life. The Eagle King says nothing at first and simply glances toward where Yi is. It then confirms that the fox really is there. At Zion Yu Peak, Yi examines the ingredients in his kitchen and thinks about how to make golden flour pine nut chicken. He regrets not saving any demon eagle meat, but decides ground pork will do. As he begins chopping, the check-in system suddenly appears and warns him that the 9-tailed spirit fox is in grave danger and needs rescuing. Yi shrugs and goes back to washing vegetables, which frustrates the system so much it activates an emergency recall protocol out of sheer desperation. A portal opens and drops the fox right into Yi's vegetable basin. The fox thrashes in the water, but then feels grateful when Yi pats its head since it assumes he saved it. That warm feeling quickly dies when Yi casually notes that it's gotten fat and stares at it like it's next on the menu. Horrified, the fox scrambles away while cursing itself for thinking Yi had grown soft. While flying, the Eagle King senses the fox's aura shift and becomes curious about how a mere 9-tailed spirit fox larva managed to teleport. It wonders how often such a divine ability can be used and immediately changes course. It commands its followers to follow and heads straight toward Zion Yu Peak. Onlookers quickly notice the change in direction and alert Yun. Her face goes white as she realizes her beloved disciple might be in danger. Without hesitation, she bolts away in a full sprint to protect Yi. Tian sneers at the Grand Elder and demands to know why he's just standing there like a statue covered in moss now that Yun has arrived. Yun turns toward him and snaps back that none of them can take on the Eagle King and dares Tian to go steal the nine-tailed spirit fox from the demon if he's so tough instead of picking on fellow cultivators. The Grand Elder silently worries since he's seen Yi display terrifying power before, but even that may not be enough against a half-step nascent soul monster like the Eagle King. Still, he decides to follow the demons in order to protect both Yun and Yi, so he heads toward Yi's place. Inside his kitchen, Yi hums while peeling potatoes and thinks about how to cook the fox. He decides the best flavor needs a low flame along with crushed ginger and garlic, plus spring onions and a splash of soy sauce and wine. He plans to taste the broth so he can pluck the fur more easily later, and also remembers he'll need some shredded ham. Right then, the check-in system pops up and warns that a fierce fight is coming and tells him to head to the door for a reward. Suddenly, a huge claw crashes through as the Eagle King tries to snatch him. Moments later, he finds himself dangling in the Eagle King's grip and the demon below in triumph until it realizes he isn't the fox and grumbles before turning back. Yun appears in front of the Eagle King, and her face shows her panic as chaos spreads through the area. Tian watches from afar and guesses the fox must be somewhere else, while also wondering who Yi really is. He just yawns like he is buzzed off on the strongest dose of shady medicinal herbs. Yun shouts and asks him if the fox is still alive because she's afraid he might have already cooked it. The Grand Elder hears this and understands her panic. Tian looks at Yi and starts to question why this guy doesn't fear the Eagle King, and also why Yun isn't too worried either. He starts to suspect Yi might be way stronger than he looks. The Eagle King finally gets annoyed and declares that it will crush Yi where he stands. The system starts screaming at Yi to run away, but before anything happens, a massive wave of energy slams down. The Eagle King stares in shock because even a full nascent soul expert wouldn't survive that blow. A huge explosion shakes the air, and smoke rolls out in all directions. When it clears, the Eagle King lies dead and ready to eat while Yi leans against the body and slowly drifts off to sleep. Everyone nearby stares with wide eyes since he just wiped out a half-step nascent soul beast and hundreds of eagle demons like it was nothing. Tian watches in disbelief and starts wondering if he is some ancient monster hiding in a young man's body. He begins sweating as he remembers mocking the Zai Yun sect earlier and quickly changes his tune by praising the sect's bright future with someone like Yi. He says he's not prepared and needs to leave, but promises to visit another time. Yun isn't buying it and calmly says he can't leave yet. She and the Grand Elder block his path together. Yun's voice turns sharp as she asks why Tian is so eager to leave before the exchange is even over. Tian, who has unfortunately soiled his trousers in fear, says his sect gives up forever and won't compete again. Yun smirks and says if they leave now, it'll make her sect look like bullies. She pretends to be generous and offers either an apology or some compensation as the sect leader. The cultivators who are watching this look at each other because they don't buy her act and know she's ruthless. Yun tells the Grand Elder to escort the guests to the back courtyard so they can rest for a few days. She makes it clear they're not allowed to wander off. The Grand Elder hesitates and asks if she means to imprison them, but Yun beams and says she just wants them to be comfortable and that beating them to death isn't necessary. The Grand Elder sighs and agrees. Yun then casually asks Tian about his upcoming big birthday, which he denies in a panic and begs her not to plan anything. She cheerfully tells him her sect will prepare a big gift when the time comes, even though she's already thinking his sect is doomed and broken. Yun walks proudly over to Yi and says he's gone from a mortal to nascent soul level in just 2 months, which proves the heavens are blessing her sect. An old man nearby whispers that Yi might not just be a genius, but maybe he's a reincarnated grandmaster. Another elder agrees and says even if he has no past memories, his skills can still help the sect grow. He suddenly says he feels gross and needs a bath, so he waves goodbye to Yun and the elders. Yun shrugs and tells him to take his time since they still have a fat demonic fox to deal with. The elders start chatting and say they'll be busy with all the eagle demons, and one suggests plucking a feather from the Eagle King to make a magical tool. Yun adds that she'll be making winter robes for Yi from the beast's feathers. 10 minutes later, the eagle's been stripped down to bare skin and bone. Yun looks over the mess and nods that this was no small feat, but then pauses and frowns because something feels off, like she forgot something important. Suddenly, voices from the disciples reach her as they shout about a delicious smell and recognize it coming from Yi's kitchen, and they all say it smells like demonic meat. Yun's eyes go wide as she realizes what's happened and races into the kitchen. She flings open the pot and gasps when she sees that the stupid Yi is about to cook his pet fox in a giant wok. The fox slowly opens its eyes and feels safe again, as it believes Yun rescued it. It leaps into her arms and cries with relief because it thought it was about to meet its ancestors. Yun gently pets it and tells the fox that while he doesn't care about it, she still does. Then he walks in holding a cleaver and mutters that the fox got away from the pot. He says its blood would have been great for stew, and he regrets not draining it earlier. The fox screams and clutches Yun like she's a life preserver. Yi casually says he can still make a nice pot of fox stew for Yun if she wants. Yun glares at him and demands to know if his brain is full of soup for thinking he can eliminate his own spirit beast. Yi shrugs and says to him, "It's just meat, and it's no big deal." Yun holds the fox close and pouts as she reminds Yi that he already promised to give it to her. Yi gets flustered because she's being all sweet, and even though he admits she's beautiful, he still thinks her 1,000-year age is a little weird. He finally gives in and says he needs more ingredients if he's going to stew the Eagle King instead. Yun hurries off with the fox and promises to get what he needs. He watches her go and mutters that he wasn't done talking. That evening, the scent of cooked meat floats through the entire sect like an invitation and a warning all at once. The Zai Yun sect raises their glasses and toasts loudly in celebration. On a nearby road, Ming slings an arm over a fellow disciple's shoulders and mocks him for having such a narrow view. He says that while the disciple saw Yi's actions earlier that day, he completely missed the deeper meaning behind them. The disciple, confused, asks what he's talking about. Ming leans in and asks what happened when the Eagle King showed up during Yi's fight with the Golden Dragons. The disciple wonders if there was more to the story, and Ming mutters that they're all fools for not seeing what's obvious. When the disciple asks if he had purposely hurt them when he stepped in, Ming points at him and praises him for finally understanding something. Disciples around them start laughing as they think Ming is simping for his sensei when he hasn't even had meat soup yet. Ming declares that Yi could have easily won the exchange tournament but chose to hide his strength. He insists that the Eagle King's arrival with its demonic army wasn't a coincidence. The disciple asks if he planned it all, and Ming roars that Yi waited at Zion Yu Peak like a patient hunter who lured in the Eagle King and wiped them all out without hurting anyone in the arena. He calls it a brilliant strategy, and the disciples around him start cheering and shouting about how Yi is unbeatable and a genius. The next morning, a female disciple runs away screaming from a group of male disciples. She begs someone to help and says the men have gone mad. Like typical dudes who don't understand the meaning of personal boundaries, they chase her while begging her to become their Tao companion and say they want to cultivate a relationship with her and entrust their happiness to her. She refuses and says her path to immortality leaves no room for things like that, and tells them to find someone else. The Grand Elder watches quietly from a distance and later sees the same group of brothers acting strangely. They confess love to one another and seem content. Nearby female disciples also act odd. They compliment each other's looks and smooth skin and talk about how they want to be close to each other, and that it feels like they're about to reach ascension. The Grand Elder, holding a bowl of hot soup, reflects that she used to think nascent soul demon beast meat was priceless and meant to benefit the disciples. Now she realizes it has a side effect, and the soup contains something extra. She decides to go to Yun immediately. Elsewhere, Yun yells at Yan to stop tearing her clothes. Yan clings to her and refuses to let go, and begs Yun to take her and says she loves her. Yun gives in and puts a small pellet in Yan's mouth and teases that she was only joking. After swallowing, Yan calms down and asks what just happened. She sees that Yun's clothes are ripped and is confused. Yun explains that she was influenced by a demon beast and tells Zai Yan to help the Grand Elder pass out clarity pellets to the other disciples in the main hall. Yan agrees and goes. Working together, Yun and the Grand Elder manage to restore order and prevent the sect from turning into the Joyful Union sect. New rules are set that ban cooks from using wine and demon beast meat as rewards. As Yun sits in her chair, she reflects on how the entire incident started because Ming and the others drank wine and realized how strong Yi truly is. After regaining her composure, she praises Yi's incredible foresight and says he must be capable of seeing events from 5,000 years ago and predicting things 5,000 years into the future. She credits this to his innate Tao body. As she picks up a book, she remembers reading an old text about how powerful the innate Tao body can be. It tells the story of a cultivator in Ao Hai Nation who eliminated a nascent soul Si Jiao at age 0, ruled the country at 30 and mastered divination at 42. She gasps and wonders if he has secretly learned divination. Thinking back on what Ming said, she starts to believe that everything that happened was part of Yi's plan. She notes that Yi wasn't hurt except for being stunned for a moment by the soup, and that he even used herbs to hide his aura. She concludes that he did it all to break into the nascent soul realm without harming anyone and that he used his spirit beast to lure the Eagle King away. Amazed by how thorough his plan was, she cancels the day's rest and tells the elders to go with her to the Tian sect and deliver the birthday gifts. 3 days later, he cooks alone at Zion Yu Peak and sighs that it's been quiet since Yun left for the 8 great sects and hasn't come back. The check-in system tells him to check in somewhere else or maybe talk to his brothers. He curses at it and accuses it of using the same tricks as always. He says it flatters him, so he'll let his guard down and then forces him to cultivate and causes trouble with those so-called chosen ones. He says maybe he should learn from a broken system nearby and change his fate. The system announces a new check-in reward and tells him to step forward for something great. It congratulates him for receiving a mysterious pet egg. Yi perks up and holds it. The system excitedly says the egg will at the very least hatch into a 9-tailed spirit fox, but its shiny shell means it could even be an azure dragon or phoenix. Yi doesn't care and tosses the egg into the steamer because it looks clean. The system freaks out and begs him to stop, and says the egg might be a divine beast. An hour later, Yi opens the steamer and grumbles that the egg is too hard, and it's even mad now. The system happily says the egg mutated, but it's still okay inside. When it cracks open, Yi stares in disbelief and sees a husky. He groans and says it's just a dumb dog that's going to wreck his house and break his doors. A husky hatches from the mysterious pet egg and happily jumps on Yi. Shocked that the egg produced such a creature, Yi stares in disbelief. As the dog licks him, Yi squirms and tells it to stop, complaining that its dirty saliva is ruining his clothes. The check-in system proudly announces that Yi has received a mutated divine beast, calling it a peak-level husky with infinite defense and limitless attack power. Yi doesn't look impressed and shoves the dog back into the steamer. However, the husky bursts out and jumps so high that it crashes straight through the ceiling. Yi looks up at the hole in stunned silence and briefly thinks about cooking the dog for meat, but sighs and gives up on the idea. Later that evening, the husky barks loudly in Yi's room. Carrying it in his arms as he walks, he glances at his bed and jokes to himself that there must be some kind of dog guidebook called Immortal Book Heavenly Joy Edition that says the first thing a newborn dog should do is tear down ceilings. While he tries to calm the floating husky down, several shadowy figures lurk outside. They whisper to each other in disappointment that the dog is nothing special and grumble that Yi didn't bring out the 9-tailed spirit fox. They say they should just get rid of the mutt. At dawn the next morning, Yi sets up a small stall 3,000 miles away from the sect with a sign that says, "Dog needs a home." Looking at the clueless husky, he figures there's no way it could find its way back from this distance. He hops onto his flying bed and waves goodbye. The husky, now named Hut, stares blankly for a moment and slowly realizes that Yi is gone. Thinking it's all part of a fun game of hide and seek, Hut dashes off with excitement and pure joy. Far above, a white-haired female rogue cultivator rides her sword through the sky. She takes a sip from her flask and sighs about how refreshing the night air feels. Reciting a few poetic lines about cold winds and distant rivers, she suddenly notices something flying next to her. Her eyes widen when she sees it's a dog. Amazed, she figures that any flying pup must be at least at the golden core level and starts thinking about capturing it as a pet. But before she can act, a sword stabs her in the side. She screams in fury as she falls and realizes too late that she's walked into an ambush. Meanwhile, a giant airship sails through the sky. A golden-haired man, the 5th elder of the Tian sect, turns to a red-haired man, the seventh elder, and mocks rogue cultivators for thinking too highly of themselves. The red-haired man agrees and brings up how Yun had the nerve to steal spirit stones from their outer disciples. He says capturing a nascent soul-level young beast might make up for the loss. Suddenly, the golden-haired man senses something. The red-haired man gets ready with his beast-catching rope. They leap off the airship and soon spot Hut happily paddling around in a lake. The red-haired man frowns and questions whether the dog even has any intelligence. But the golden-haired man just laughs and says young beasts are often clueless and suggests they wait and watch a bit longer. He gently lifts Hut from the water and stares into its bright eyes. The more he looks, the more he feels like he's seeing a deep connection to reincarnation and loyalty. He bursts out laughing and declares that this dog will become the key to the Tian sect's revival. The red-haired man looks confused and urges him to think carefully, but by nightfall, they've already brought Hut onto the airship. A voice questions the fifth elder about where the beast came from and whether anyone saw what happened. Calmly, the elder replies that a rogue cultivator crashed into their ship and extracted the soul, turning them into a fool. He also wiped out every cultivator on that route to keep everything secret, so no other sect would know. Then he hands Hut over to the red-haired man and tells him to raise it well. As the fifth elder watches Hut sitting on a table, he wonders why there are no records about this type of beast. He isn't sure if it's fire red or thunder blue, but says it doesn't matter as long as it has a color. Hut meanwhile becomes fascinated with a nearby lamp. It suddenly opens its mouth and bites out a glowing stone from the radiant sun lamp before bolting away like a flash of lightning. Everyone stares in shock. Tian roars in rage and demands that the mutated dog return the lamp immediately. The disciples of the Tian sect surround Hut and shout at him to give back the radiant sun lamp. One of them tries to pull the stone out of his mouth, but quickly realizes that the dog's strength is incredible. The seventh elder storms over and warns Hut not to let any drool touch the lamp. Just as he says that, a drop of saliva falls onto the stone, and it immediately begins to glow even brighter. Everyone gasps in shock, and someone exclaims that the light must have come from the dog's drool. The seventh elder stares in disbelief and points out how the colors are changing more clearly than before. But Hut keeps his jaws locked like a hungry baby holding on to its mother until the stone suddenly shatters. The fifth elder is stunned, and he mutters that even a nascent soul expert couldn't break the radiant sun lamp, and yet this dog just did. The seventh elder is just as shocked and says that maybe a spirit beast's natural gifts can surpass normal logic at a high enough level. Tian hugs Hut tightly and laughs with joy. He declares that with this treasure, the Tian sect will definitely rise and says that once Hut grows up, conquering the eastern wastelands will be easy. He swears that the next time they face Yun, he will make him pay. A loud knock suddenly breaks the moment, and Tian quickly straightens up before asking who's there. He reminds them that they are in the middle of something important. A worried voice answers and reports that something is wrong at the forbidden grounds in the back mountains. Tian rushes to the mystical site, and instead of taking responsibility like a true leader, he behaves like a teenager throwing tantrums. He barks at his people to find out who the intruder is and accuses some other sect of sending spies. He then orders the second and seventh elders to gather disciples and get everyone ready for battle. But a strange voice suddenly fills the air and says there's no need to prepare. It tells them to welcome their ancestors. Tian's eyes widen, and he shouts back, demanding to know who's pretending to be their ancestor, as calling yourself one isn't enough to prove anything. The voice calmly tells them to look down, and when they do, they see the celestial star formation created by their true ancestor. A man with blue hair and empty eyes appears in front of them. Tian's voice catches as he recognizes the man and stammers out that this really is the ancestor who died 3,000 years ago. The entire sect drops to their knees and greets him with deep respect. The ancestor lifts his hand and tells them to stand. He explains that he still needs one more day to absorb spiritual energy before fully returning. He then shakes his head like a disappointed father about his son's math grades and asks how they could struggle so much with just a magical tool. He wonders if the sect has fallen into some kind of disaster. Chun trembles as he explains everything. The ancestor's eyes burn with rage, and he vows to destroy the entire Yun sect with his own hands the very next day. The sect members shout in unison that they will obey his command. Later, the ancestor sits down to meditate, but he frowns and says the spiritual energy here is too weak. He doubts that he'll reach the void interpretation stage by tomorrow. He thinks to himself that flesh and blood are always the best fuel and sighs that the nascent soul disciples are over at the Yun sect. He glances at his own people and starts wondering if eliminating a few golden core disciples could help. Then he hears some of the inner disciples whispering nearby. They are talking about how the sect leader's spirit pet has vanished. The ancestor's irritation flares, and his anger grows even worse. The disciples keep whispering without knowing he is listening. They seem genuinely worried about the missing pet. Just then, the ancestor appears behind them, and the room falls silent. Without saying a word, he drains their life force and leaves behind dried-up corpses. He pauses and thinks about what kind of spirit pet could stir such trouble. Suddenly, he senses an unbelievably pure energy that feels even stronger than a 1,000-year-old snow lotus. He turns and sees Hut peeing right on top of his grave. His fury explodes, and he screams that the dog is defiling his resting place. He says the beast is just what he needs to absorb spiritual energy, and he flies forward to attack. But the moment he gets close, Hut casually lets out a blast of gas that instantly wipes out the ancestor's spirit form. Now reduced to a ball of swirling energy, the ancestor moans that a single fart destroyed his chance at reaching the void interpretation stage. He stares at Hut and wonders out loud what kind of monster this creature really is. A moment later, he watches in horror as Hut starts digging up his grave, and he desperately begs the dog to stop. Will the system continue to intervene every time he gets into trouble? Or will you stop being lazy and decide to use the full potential of his innate Daobo? Comment "Ease laziness" if you want to see part 2 of this manga. As always, smash that like button, subscribe for more twisted game world drama, and as always, thanks for watching.